Hello everyone, Mason here. How are you doing? Today it's time for some romance. I'm reviewing If I Never Met You by Mhairi McFarlane, which was first published on the 5th of March 2020. I'm painfully aware that when it comes to the contemporary romance genre, I've been quite lucky. Eventually I'm bound to come across an unbearable stinker, but that hasn't happened yet. So far, I've actually been continually surprised. I pick up these books expecting a fun, light read, and invariably end up getting a bit more than that, and this is definitely one of those. If I Never Met You centres around 36-year-old Laurie, who's a hard-working, successful barrister. Nice. I like reading about hard-working, successful people, as I am, clearly, a hard-working, successful guy. What I'm saying is, uploading book reviews to YouTube is clearly on par with making it as a barrister. The story opens with Laurie going on a lovely girls' night out with a group of her friends. You know, other than the ignorant, sickly sweet one with the custard yellow hair who asks Laurie where she's from, despite the fact that she's clearly from Yorkshire. But she doesn't mean, where are you from? She means, where are you from? Because Laurie is mixed race. What decade is this? Oh yeah, I just checked, and it's the year that's not an appropriate question. Imagine being that ignorant. I reckon if you could hear inside the head of someone that would ask that sort of question with that sort of connotation, you'd just hear white noise. Anyway, after getting thoroughly drunk, Laurie returns home and finds a long-term partner of 18 years alone in the living room after midnight with no TV on, just waiting for her. This isn't going to be good, is it? No, it's not good. Dan, Laurie's partner, has done some soul searching and has decided that he no longer wants to continue the relationship. He couldn't have waited for a more appropriate time, like in the morning, when she's sober? No, just the first sign that Dan is a massive The story that follows is Laurie trying to come to terms with the life that she's built for herself quickly crumbling down around her. Eventually she finds out that some of the reasons, most of the reasons, that Dan has given for wanting to break up are, for want of a better term, utter Seriously, the further you get into this book, the more you will realise that Dan is just awful. One day at work, a little while later, Laurie is trapped in a lift with Jamie Carter, another hard-working, successful barrister. Jamie doesn't have the best reputation though. Despite being good at his job, he is by all accounts a serial womanizer. The type of man that doesn't believe in monogamy and long-term relationships because marriage is an antiquated legal arrangement that inevitably leads to divorce and heartbreak. Laurie and Jamie get along surprisingly well. It turns out Jamie wants a promotion, but the bosses at the law firm they work for don't take him seriously because of the bad reputation that he has. On the other hand, Laurie desperately wants to show Dan that she's moved on, that he hasn't broken her. She wants to make him jealous. If only they could come up with some sort of mutually beneficial arrangement. Of course they can, they're barristers, they're smart enough to work out a solution. They pragmatically decide to start fake dating. So that's the basic setup, and after that, things play out pretty much as you expect they would, but it's also quite enjoyable. Mhairi McFarlane does a good job of taking what could be a bog standard meal and adding some tasty seasoning to it to make sure that it's not a bland experience. I can't imagine being in Laurie's shoes. I've only been with my partner 7.5 years, which is less than half the time Dan and Laurie were together, but even so, if she left me now, out of the blue, it'd be a culture shock. I wouldn't be sure what to do with myself. This element of relatability ensures that despite the fact that Laurie spends a lot of the story heartbroken and thinking about Dan, it never comes across as melodramatic to me. It's completely understandable. Laurie goes on a journey of rediscovering herself. She does a lot of reflecting on the past, wondering what she did wrong. Dan doesn't love her anymore and therefore she must have done something, she must have caused it somehow. throughout the story, she has to learn that this isn't necessarily the case, and that things are sometimes just beyond your control. There's some great exploration of sexism in the workplace. Dan and Laurie are treated completely differently post-breakup. Dan is treated with respect. Meanwhile, Laurie is expected to act a certain way. When she strikes up a relationship with Jamie, people act like it's a bit too soon to be back on the market, which is just a disgusting term if we're being honest. They act like she's some helpless, naive woman that's being taken advantage of by Jamie. They make out that the quality of her work is slipping because she's too focused on a new romance. One guy is particularly nasty. He acts offended that Laurie would even dare consider getting with someone else from work because he seems to have assumed he would be next in line after Dan, which is gross. It's an interesting dynamic because she doesn't just have to deal with the emotional effects of the breakup. She has to deal with the fact that she works at the same place as Dan, that she sees him on a regular basis and the complications that come with that. At the same time, she's dealing with all of these judgments from her colleagues as this newly single woman that isn't acting the way that they expect. I also enjoyed the exploration of Jamie's character, how he's perceived and treated by others. It becomes obvious that the reason he has a bad reputation is because of the rumours spread by jealous male colleagues. The same jealous male colleagues that treat Laurie with judgmental, misogynistic disrespect for daring to spend time with someone that they don't approve of. Just because Jamie isn't in a long-term monogamous relationship and isn't currently looking for one, he's painted as a womanizer. But to me, this takes away the agency from any of the sexual partners he might have, and portrays them as naive and helpless, the same way that Laurie is treated. It just seems like the result of such a toxic attitude. Jamie is seen as this scheming, manipulating heartbreaker, and the women that he sleeps with are what? Too stupid and naive to see past his dashing good looks to realise that they're being used and manipulated. It's just ridiculous. I enjoyed the dynamic between Laurie and Jamie. They treat each other with respect. They strike up an actual friendship. Because they're not expecting any genuine romance, they're not trying to impress or seduce each other, they just act like themselves. They're completely honest. They help each other with the issues they're having in their life, and this leads to some moments that are actually quite nice. The one criticism that I do have is the ending, or the end section. At first it's quite a slow burn, which is nice. We're building towards a particular event, but once we get past that event, everything happens really quickly, and the ending just feels rushed. It's like Mhairi McFarlane just wanted to tie a bow on it, and I didn't necessarily believe the ending. Overall, If I Never Met You ended up being a pleasant read. Although it does hit on the familiar tropes of a rom-com, it also has some surprising depth to it. On multiple occasions it surprised me. I thought something was going to happen and it didn't. I also like that it focuses heavily on Laurie's journey of acceptance, rebuilding herself, learning to show herself the love and respect that she deserves. The focus isn't on Jamie. Although he shows Laurie a few things, tells her a few truths, he doesn't just swoop in, pick up the pieces, and make everything all better again. Laurie has to learn to be responsible for her own happiness. Personally, I definitely recommend If I Never Met You. It might not have been groundbreaking, it might not be something that I return to and read again, but I enjoyed it, it was fun, and it was definitely worth the read. I also wouldn't be opposed to reading something else by Mhairi McFarlane either. My question for today is this: how do you know if you're trapped in a rom-com? I hope you've enjoyed today's review. If you have, stand outside the like button's house with a boombox over your head, then say hi in the comments section and we can have a chat. The link to my Twitter is in the description, and subscribing will make sure you never miss another review. Thanks ever so much for spending time with me today, guys. Until next time, take care. For now, I'm off, and you should have a good one.